Bright Golden Haze, the lyrics taken, of course, from Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical Oklahoma, celebrating the beautiful light and landscape of our state. That exhibition focused specifically on light and how artists are using it to create a sense of place.
Exhibition design is about connecting several things. First of all, you have a place, which is the gallery and the Contemporary Art Center in Oklahoma City, and then you have the curator who put together a collection of artwork that has a story, and then you have the viewers. So we do a bridging between all these three aspects, right? The place, the story of the art, and the experience of the viewer. So we create the environment that actually provides the experience for the viewer to enjoy the art. In Bright Golden Haze, it starts out very softly, and the first work that you see is an Olafur Eliasson, which I thought was very smart, because the space itself is made by the light that emanates from this art object. It also is a kind of light that takes away all colors, right? But it's golden. And so first of all, you see this incredible amount of light, and the light makes a space, and then you move slowly through what we'll call an analog sequence, like traditional work that is hung on walls or made into rooms. And then you move into very sort of electronic and digital medium. And the sequence of the meal, let's say, equivalent to the sequence of the exhibit experience, is moving from course to course to course. So in the beginning, you would actually be working on architectural spaces. Basically, they're all spatial installations, and they take then further into a release of space, and then an appreciation of just the object on the wall, like the way you traditionally think about an art object. And then you go back into these immersive environments again, and ultimately into one of the most immersive environments where you actually have to lay down to experience it, you know. So yeah, that's how it actually works.
I'm Joe Glasco. The other half of our practice is my wife, J.R. Doty, and we've been working together collaboratively for about 8 years now, since we met in grad school for photography at San Francisco Art Institute. And this was kind of like a culmination of a road trip we took in about 2014, where we traveled about 40,000 miles across the country and taking pictures, and shot 50,000 images of the American West and all the way to Florida and back again. And so this project kind of became a representation of that exploration and just the interest in the American landscape. We were able to procure the entire collection of Arizona highways starting about 1938, I think, up to 2000. So about 1,500 individual magazines that we have. A lot of them have duplicates in there. And so when we got that archive of magazines, we started going through and looking for typologies. So photographs taken of the same location, just at different times or by different photographers, and just exploring that notion of how the landscape alters or how it's perceived differently by different photographers, and then also kind of bringing it back into the context of social media and hashtags and everything like that, where you're seeing these same photographs taken over and over again. And then just kind of the iconic American West propaganda that was part of Arizona highways. We really wanted to take these landscape photographs and kind of re-represent them as almost painting-like or in an ephemeral way. And so we're just trying to explore and present the photographs in a new fashion that's not typically like traditional photography. The main medium in this whole show here is silk. We print on 2 different kinds of silk, the doorway being the thinnest silk that you can buy. And I think it's just an interesting material to be working with because it's not your traditional photography. You know, it's not on paper or framed or anything like that. So it's kind of a way to bring this ephemeral nature to these landscapes and the subtleties of color back around full circle, and then to be able to like interact with the image too by having it draped slightly and it moves when you walk by it. You really want to be focused on the foreground in the image and trying to capture as much information and trying to get a sense of space. So a lot of people like say I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this thing back here, but you really need to like build a foreground into the image to kind of create that sense of space in there. And so once you photographed a lot of landscapes, and you kind of start to realize like where your focal point needs to be, and it's not at the horizon, but it's maybe about a third of the way into the image is really where you want that crisp, because it's kind of like the way you see the landscape too. It's kind of trying to take that perspective. The original idea for making this piece as a whole was to create kind of a room where you were looking out into these landscapes. I wanted to bring like the American dream kind of home aesthetic back to these images and everything like that, and kind of how, you know, the West kind of shaped America after World War II, and just that aspect of almost manifest destiny and exploring notions around that.
So we're here at the beginning of the VJ Salmon's piece, and as you can see, the environment is really a piece of wall and the floor. They're all the same white color. And as I come into here, this is a really intimate experience with me seeing this work, right? I could come up to it and look deeply into the fine techniques of how this detail is, or I can come back over here to the bench and I can sit down. There's a bench here. And then I could sit here and really kind of take this piece in and really look into it. It's meant to be a kind of deep, infinite space, like it's a night sky. So as you can see, the light is really just focused on here. And when you turn around here at this point, the ending of this space, the floor ends in this kind of white piece that makes the whole space flows together and just hold on to this piece. And then when we come over to here, the floor actually brings you to yet another floor. And now this time, this floor in front of this Teresita Fernandez is actually just the reflected light from the light that is aimed on the piece and reflected on the floor. So you can kind of see that there's this golden spill of light on the floor, almost like a carpet that you can stand on. And now you see this Teresita Fernandez piece, and it's both got this really inky black, sometimes reflective things, and really matte ones, and then the light comes right on top of it, and you can actually see yourself in it, and you can actually see the space that you come in from it. So this is a tremendously big scale piece, and you're just experienced a very small, intimate, very black and white VJ Salmon's piece, and you were sitting there and you were very chilled, and then you come to this piece and this is like full of excitement. There's a lot of energy going on in this piece, and those pieces exist in the same room. So that's part of the exhibition design, is to be challenged to actually hold these two experiences one after another, so that you really are bringing the sequence of the show one after another, one course after another. It's just like in a meal.
My name is Yatika Fields. I'm an artist, a painter, living in Oklahoma and Tulsa. Yeah, so graffiti aesthetics, I think, works into my painting through fluidity and movement and spontaneity. This is something that I learned when I was younger, of course, doing graffiti in my early 20s when I was living on the East Coast. And at the same time, I was painting with the brush, but I was also experimenting, I think, with the street and the lifestyle of being young in a city, and got involved with graffiti. But when you practice that, it's about being out in the streets, being out in the night, and it's like a performance with the urban environment, and you're painting quickly and you're moving quickly. And those aesthetics I took with me into my current art practice, into the fine art practice and oil painting. So I'm using full body movement and a lot of activity and force, and it's very gestural. And that is something that I didn't know prior to graffiti. as I was doing landscape art or trying to render the human form. But then once I got into the street and was involved in the night and the activity of using the spray can, you have to be quick, you have to make quick decisions, and you have to use a full body motion. And I took that and combined it with everything I learned from my fine art practice and mentorship at a young age and fine arts and landscape painting in Italy, and combined that into what I have now, which is very kind of this kind of evolved dynamic concept of painting where I'm utilizing both that skill of movement and fine art technique, I guess. But I've made it into my own style, and it's something that I can really understand because it allows me the freedom and fun of full movement and body, because the body is very important, I think, to be expressive, and we have that ability to do so. So if I can do that into a painting, then it just makes that painting so much more powerful. Becoming an ultra runner, which is an ultra runner is anything over 26.2 miles is the marathon distance, and I've been involved in those distances, 50 miles, 70 miles, 90 miles, and so forth. And you know, in the last 5 years, I think I've gotten into this kind of running. A lot of these races take place on trails all throughout the world, beautiful locations, mountains, countrysides, where you'd never see this unless you're in a race or on these trails. Or in training in mountains and stuff like that. It's informed my practice in that it's allowed me to really immerse myself in nature. It's allowed me to immerse myself in all kinds of changing light. I first started doing landscape painting when I was 19 in Italy under the mentorship with Marty Averett at that time he was a painting and drawing instructor at Oklahoma State University. But I went to Italy, I learned landscape painting, and that changed my whole idea of what color is. And how to capture essence. From then to now, I go back into running in nature as a part of my practice to be better, as wholesome and feeling good, and I can put that into my work, and therefore it relates back to how I feel to the public and whoever sees it, because I want my work to kind of imbue that for the viewer as well. But in doing so, I find myself traversing beautiful landscapes, like I said, and seeing trees lit up by light at sunset. And if I wasn't on that trail at that time running, I would never see such magnificent colors, you know? And I think about, you know, how I got here to that point and stuff like that, and I try not to think too hard about it, but I just let it be and allow it. I know it's a part of my practice because I see it. And then, for instance, I'm here in front of this painting, and these bright colors that you see on this tree, I've seen pink so magnificent that I didn't think was possible because of a sunset in a mountain hitting an aspen just at the right time. The particular thing about this painting is that the sun is kind of so central, which is something you don't really see in paintings ever, because it's almost like cliche a bit, right, to have a sun so centered. But I thought I'd be interested in this piece because it is about light, and it talks about that. And I want the sun to be kind of central because people are going to be kind of connected to it as they walk around the gallery, so it's going to pull them in just like a ray of sun. And you don't often see that in land ever, right? Because it's kind of tricky. How are you going to do that? You know, do you really want that to be the central force? So it's coming out, it's radiating, you see, it's almost like it's blowing at you, and you see the leaves kind of moving. You see the light casting on the leaves as they're turning in the wind as well. You see the reflections, light hitting the rocks, so you know it's going that way. Light's hitting this, light's hitting that. It's hitting this way, you see the dark shadow. So I want it to be the force so it kind of comes out at you and around you, so it holds you, right? You know, I want them to think of a journey beyond their present situation. I want them to think about that there is a horizon on the other side that they can cross if they want, that there's more to just in setting here, that they can actually go in there, they can go farther than that, they can see a sunrise, they can see a sunset. I want them to feel like there's a place for them.
I'm Eva Schlegel. I'm an artist based in Vienna, Austria, and I work there in a wonderful studio and enjoy making art. Photography is actually a big part of my practice because I studied graphic arts at the Academy in Vienna, and I found out that drawing or painting is difficult for me because I always have a concept. My approach towards art is with a concept, and for that I'm experimenting a lot. The piece which is included in this wonderful show, Bright Golden Haze, is a blurred photograph of an architectural space. It's not what it seems. It's not a door where a light comes through, because if you watch the angles, if you search for it, they're not right angles. It's not what it should be, but still you have the feeling it's drawn or it's painted with light and shadow. The image itself is blurred on purpose, but I have to admit I do all the photography which I do very focused. I make photos very focused, and then I go through it and then I redo them either on the computer or I reshoot them as printouts. Because it's very important, because blurriness is not blurriness. And there's a certain state of blurriness where the image seems to appear or seems to disappear, goes back and forth, where it breathes in a way. This is a very important aspect. It's always related to the body, it's always related to the size of the body. This is especially also with this work, why this work is so big. It's like a door or a window which invites you to follow to a different world in a way.
My name is Josh Tonsfeldt. I'm an artist. I work in many different mediums. A lot of my work starts out in photography and video and sculpture. I'm originally from Kansas City, and I have family from Oklahoma, so I have some connections to Oklahoma as well. A lot of my work comes from my daily life, from interactions with family, from domestic life and materials that we use every day. The work that I have in Bright Golden Haze is an untitled work from 2015. It's a sort of a video and a sculpture at the same time. It consists of a 65-inch off-the-shelf sort of consumer television that I've taken and kind of partially disassembled. So when you see it, you might not recognize it necessarily as a television or as a screen. The work is several things. It's a dissection of a screen of this sort of device that we all look at every day and spend a great deal of our lives in front of. It's also a montage, a kind of collage of video, of fragments of video from my daily life and experiences that I've had, but it's edited in a way that's fairly sort of abstract. There's no narrative to it. I think with this work, I also like the idea of sculpture being something that could almost be missed, or it could almost recede into the background in a way where you're not sure if you're looking at something that's a piece of art or if you're looking at something that might just be something that's left behind or a part of the space. And so I think that that's something else that sculpture can do, is it can raise questions, and it can sort of challenge us to reconsider our own sort of assumptions of taste or our own kind of assumptions of what is familiar to us. This is something I think it's okay to say with art, even for the artists sometimes, to say I don't have the answers. It's not my job always to tell you what the work means.
It's really important also in exhibit design to look at sight lines. So how you approach a space and what do you see first, second, third as you step forward. So as you're coming towards me, you can see that there's two very brightly lit objects. The Strand here with the neon and the Tonsfeldt here on this big screen, right? They start to kind of talk to each other in some way. And this is the kind of thing that we like to do, is to kind of wait and get some kind of dialogue going between the pieces, so you see them working with each other. As you move over here on your left-hand side here, there's two analog pieces. There are paintings and photographs that are hung on the walls, and they exist in the same space as this digital as well as this analog. And the analog space here with the paintings and the photographs on the wall is supported by the wall as well as a little bit of the floor, so that your peripheral vision as you come to the painting and the photograph, you don't get too much of the kind of darkness in the floor intruding into that. So it's also part of the sightline. So you can see behind me, basically, you have a one world where all these white walls are, and it's framing that other world with the digital that has all the kind of darkness of it. And in between, both the white walls and the dark walls work together to bring that sight line all the way through to the end of the gallery where the immersive digital pieces are.
I'm Camille Utterback. I'm an artist. I've been working for a long time using technology as my medium, specifically software that I write. And I do that because it allows me to take a sensor like a camera, or sometimes I've used touch sensors, other ways I can get information about the world into the computer, and then I write software that reacts to that. And what's interesting to me about that is it allows me to create systems that react to your body in real time. So it allows you to feel like you're maybe in another space, or you have influence on this computer-generated space. So for me, it's really not in the end about the technology or the computers, but about how do you think about yourself in relation to systems. So the code I'm writing is a set of rules, and it's interesting for me to create a situation where you, as the participant in that system, because it's reacting to you, have to kind of think about why might it be doing that, or what is it doing if I stick out my hand or touch something, like how is my presence being having an impact in this system. So I think that's an important question for all of us, because we're all part of all different kinds of systems, not just our technological systems. And the more I feel like as an artist I can create a space where people start thinking about those rules and why is it reacting this way, or what if I do this, that hopefully gets them thinking about their role in the world in general. So Entangled is a piece that builds on drawing systems I've been doing for a long time that use cameras on the ceiling to watch the space, and based on how people are moving in the space, all these different images evolve. It's often based on people's trajectories and paths, and things get added to the system and then you can push them around. For a long time those systems were more simple in the sense there was a projection on the wall and the camera looking at the space. And part of my work lately, I've been really questioning or just getting tired of screens that are everywhere, flat screens that really don't use our depth perception at all. So part of what I wanted to do with this piece was create a display situation that was much richer. So I got excited about projecting through this set of scrims. So part of what's different about this drawing system is it's not a projection onto a flat wall, but onto this set of scrims. But then the opportunity there is that people can see each other through the scrims. So I decided to make a work that is two-sided, and people on both sides of the set of scrims are influencing the system. But you can only influence what is being projected from one side, not the other. So you are in control of some aspects of this situation, but not all of them. And I think that is also stemming from kind of getting more and more concerned about how a lot of our technological systems are completely egomaniacal, maybe. Like, they're all about you. It's all about you. Everything's about you, and this illusion that you're in control of everything. So I want people to think a little bit about what does it mean when you're part of a system but you don't have complete control. In fact, it's a shared space that's shared with the people on the other side of the scrim, and so how do you negotiate that in a real physical space?
This idea of expansiveness, it's wonderful to be in Oklahoma, and I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and my family's from Marfa, and I've always been exposed to the landscape and the sky and the stars and these things that have a certain scale, which is different from from New York City where I live now. But I think that is really important, and that this sense of spaciousness is something that I I seek in my work, and I love being in these sorts of environments. So I think that Star Ceiling will resonate for people who come to visit it here, particularly with the kind of vastness that people experience all the time. Although this artwork is, about 20 feet by 10 feet, it still evokes this sense of like the infinite in its ability to kind of take people on a journey. So I made my first zero gravity bench in 2001. I was interested in, I'd been involved in a lot of early virtual reality research, and this is way back when. And one of the ideas was this position could equally distribute your body weight and help you to sort of leave your body, which I found fascinating. I'm also very interested in artist-made furniture. John Chamberlain is a big inspiration, and the barges that he created in Marfa and in Pittsburgh at the Warhol Museum are very interesting to me, and creating a space for the viewer that encourages a different kind of interaction. It's not just come in, look at it, and leave. It's like, here's a place for you to actually experience a work. So it really creates this further sense of immersion to create a place for people to really be with the artwork. For a viewer, you might see something that you recognize, but never in the same order for the same amount of time. And I think that's something that makes the pieces very livable, and you can spend a lot of time with them, and something that you see something new in them all the time. And I think it's it's sort of nice to let viewers off the hook. It's not like when you walk into a video installation and you feel anxiety of like, well, what did I miss? In this case, you didn't miss anything, and it's never going to do the same thing again. So you can just dip into it, look at it, come to your own conclusion. It's nothing that you have to like get. There's no one right answer. So I think all those things add up to something that's very much about the viewer. And I think in the time now that we're surrounded by so much technology and so many different kinds of agendas of buy this, go here, there's a lot of it's very intense, all these things we're surrounded by, that this uses that same technology, but in a very open-ended way, and there is no path, there is no one right way, and you can sort of come to your own conclusion, which I think creates a sense of freedom that elicits joy in people. This idea of chance is really important to me in a sort of playfulness as well. I mean, I like getting lost in the work and not exactly realizing how I got to where I got to, somehow. But I think that's sort of much more interesting than having this kind of didactic, I'm making this and this is what it's going to be. And, I sort of enjoy not knowing and discovering the solution. And being able to do that here is really important. And the tuning, I've often described adjusting my pieces as tuning them, almost as if they're musical instruments. And it really is important to balance it out, because light can be used badly and can make people feel all sorts of things. It's I think it's very impactful. So it's important that it be used well.
I think the range of objects and art experiences about light, it's really tremendous, broad range. Again, like in the beginning, including lighting just a typical, like what you would think of an art object on the wall, to things that are like holograms, right? Or things that are digital, or lights that are cycling on and off, LED lights, all kinds of different like neon lights, right? So you have, and video lights coming from a screen. And so in that way, I don't think we have ever worked on a show that has such a broad range of light. And it kind of befits the title of the show too, that it will be kind of linked to the concept of light no matter what, right? With the bright golden haze, yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Archiving Contemporary Art. To learn more about the Bright Golden Haze exhibition, you can pick up a copy of our catalog here in Shop Contemporary, the place for local goods, craft items, fun projects, and then beautiful books as well. This is a fully illustrated catalog with installation shots from our very own gallery. So this catalog really serves as the document for the exhibition. So if you want to learn more about the exhibition, or if you missed it while it was on view, this is your best chance to get a glimpse of Bright Golden Haze. Thanks again for joining us. Come by Oklahoma Contemporary anytime. There's always something on view here. Thanks.